Hello, welcome to our presentation. Marilyn and I are here at the Community Resource Center to give you a short presentation on some different pathways that you might be interested in as non-college bound high school graduates. We want to give you a lot of information today, and we hope that you'll be able to connect with a career counselor following this presentation to make further plans for your next steps.
Okay, so an introduction to our presentation is that we found that roughly about 30% to 40% of high school graduates in the US, they don't immediately pursue college after graduation. And then this number has fluctuated over time, with some years seeing a slightly higher percentage of non-college enrollment.
Yeah, and as we've looked at the research, there's a lot of different factors that play into this and contribute to this. There is obviously the affordability concern with college and university courses costing so much. There's the stress of doing continued education. There's also the desire to pursue vocational training or another career path and just immediately go into the workforce.
Right. And then some young people choose not to attend college because they have other plans. So, namely, working right after high school, pursuing a career does not require college, or joining the military. So it doesn't necessarily have to be factors of like money or stress or other concerns. It's just that you choose a different pathway.
Absolutely. And what we really hope to underscore today with you is that non-college bound students should be offered the same opportunities that are comparable to other students. And whether headed to college, whether headed into the workforce, we want to help connect students with their skills and create goals and a path that is clear for you that can use the best of the abilities that you have.
Right. And just to reiterate Heather, what she just said, whatever their reason, students should be provided like through the educational process preparation for the next phase of their lives, whatever they choose to do.
Absolutely.
So we're going to go into some needs, challenges, and strengths that we find. So some needs that high school students that are not college bound need is, first, we realize that they need career counseling and mentoring. So a lot of the research that we found, it says that students planning to attend college are more likely to receive counseling for planning their high school programs than students without aspirations for higher education. So this is the reason why we want to give these resources in order for the students to make good decisions about what they want to do in the future. Um, Also, some of the needs that we found were clear school work pathways to employment. So, career and technical education. Some of the research that it shows is that a portion of the students would do much better in vocational or career and technical paths. So the vocational track offered in high school has the potential to provide these students with a foundation for the job. So our some of the needs that we see is in our high schools, how can we implement these CTE resources? And then lastly, some of the needs that we also found was skills training, certifications, and apprenticeships. So again, if you're not going into looking into college, some certifications may be the first step for acquiring a job and starting a career, as it allows students to prepare for post-secondary options other than those in traditional higher education.
Mhm. Yes, and we understand that there might be additional challenges for students who are choosing an alternative path, and at times it can seem like this might be the more difficult road, but actually there are a lot of services, and we want to help point you to the different agencies and services that are in your area. And so, there are a lot of reasons, like we said, that students are choosing alternative paths. One of the challenges that we see as career counselors is that there are so many different reasons that it's hard to cover all the pertinent information in just one group setting like today. And so we highly recommend you to connect to a career counselor so that you can have a one-on-one, unique, tailored plan for you and your phase of life, the skills that you have, the personality that you have, the experience that you have. that can be really beneficial to create a tailored plan. Some of the reasons that high school students might choose not to pursue formal education through a four-year university might include some academic deficits or the inability to pay for higher education. Many students are unwilling to get into debt, and that's a valid reason. College is very expensive. The traditional four-year universities have gone up in their cost. There's also a lack of interest for some to go to school directly out of high school and do more school. And then some students also might have financial obligations already. And so it's just the best of their welfare to not get into more financial commitments as far as paying for school. And so all of these reasons are valid. And I'm sure there are more that we have not addressed today, but we have seen a trend over the past several years. And according to the research of Mary Alexander in her article, Useful Education, she's considering several more recent developments on the impact of high school students that are going on a non-college path. Of course, we've already mentioned finances, but it's just very important to continue to look at the high cost of college. The price has gone up incredibly. Also, there are some who want to gain experience right away, right out of high school in a trade or a vocational school, and you can do that in a much shorter time frame. There's also been a decrease in the confidence in the value of traditional college, and that's due to some of the post-college underemployment. Many students find that they earn the degree, but then they're not able to get a job that's equal to that degree, and so they're underemployed, so they're making less money, making it more difficult to pay off their loans. And so that is a factor. And then there's also an interesting political climate around higher education with the post-COVID world that we all live in. There's been a shift where previously the idea for virtual or online courses was pretty minimal. Well, now that after the COVID pandemic, so many people were forced to do online school. And so now we have students who realize they could do an online course at night, part-time, while working a job and having an income. And so we do see fewer students going directly to the full-time four-year college and opting for a part-time option where they can do school and still make an income. But there are some strengths, honestly, to this shift in education. There are more options today than ever before when we look at those online courses and the relationships between community colleges and four-year universities. Many students can start out going part-time at a community college, gain some of those hours, save on the debt and the cost of college up front, and then transfer later into a university. We also have many vocational and technological programs available, certifications, and then on-the-job training available for students.
Right. So what are some multicultural implications that we found to be challenges for our students? So as career counselors, we found that students from families of lower economic statuses or minority status that come from like a small school or rural areas, they don't have access um, to guidance in the counseling for making these important decisions at the beginning of their high school career. So a lot of the times we're not giving our students the access to make this informed decisions about whether or not they want to pursue a higher education, or go right into the workforce. And then there's also the generational or like cultural idea that if the parents did not attend college, then it's not really important for students to continue formal education. So these are some of the challenges that we've been seeing that high school students are going through in order to make these decisions to go into higher education or go directly into the workforce.
Mhm. And so, as we look at the different career counseling theories, the social cognitive career theory might offer some encouragement to high school students who desire to avoid or delay a four-year college path. And these are the following reasons that we found that the SCCT might be a helpful framework. First of all, it places importance on observational learning, mentorship, and networking to shape the career path. That might be helpful for non-college bound students who could benefit from exposure to various career options and also some role models through mentorship. The second thing that we really like about this framework is the emphasis on self-efficacy, and that might increase the student's belief in his or her ability to succeed in their own unique path. The third thing we really like about this framework is the focus on outcome expectations, which might address the student's personal beliefs about potential careers or job outcomes. It might give information where it might be lacking. For example, a student who thinks I just can't do it, or I can't afford it, or I'm not smart enough to get into college. And so a career counselor could help this student reframe their mindset and give them some different options that they might not have had before. So correcting those false assumptions, which could also hopefully grow the student's self-awareness and self-confidence in their own potential job opportunities for their unique path. Which leads me to the last thing that we really like about this framework, and that's the creation of personal goals. It creates a unique plan and it brings clarity and a path to what the next employment steps could be. We also love this framework for its multicultural implications. Because of this emphasis on mentoring, networking, and self-efficacy, SCCT might connect clients and students with a mentor who has a similar story, and that person could encourage him or her in their career path. For example, there's an incredible documentary that you might want to watch called Ready to Rise by the Road Trip Nation. And in that documentary, we saw several students who were introduced to adults that came into really cool jobs, but in a very unusual ways. And so these students were able to connect with an adult who maybe reminded them of themselves and honestly, they all had difficult pasts and obstacles that they overcame, but then they were able to get into a career that was really rewarding. And so as students are introduced to mentors or people that they look up to, they can hopefully gain that self-confidence that they too could overcome their circumstances and their obstacles and create a new future through their career. So as we look at what some of those options might be, we are in two different areas in the United States. That's where we're from, and so it makes it really interesting. We can give you a snapshot of our two areas, and then if you don't live in either of these areas, that gives you an idea of where you might look in your area. So in the Oklahoma City area, we've got technology centers in all of the metro areas. So we've got Francis Tuttle Vocational Center, and it has three locations. There's Platt Culinary College that also has a graphic design and a media arm to it. We've got the Oklahoma Beauty Academy where there are cosmetology and other types of beauty degrees there. There's a pet grooming at the Unleashed Pet School. We've got OSU, which is Oklahoma State, and Rose State Community College that do healthcare plans where students could pursue an LPN, phlebotomy, dental, or medical assisting. And then at Oklahoma City Community College, there's an entire career counseling program that will help guide students and also build their resume if that's something that they need for their next step. Outside of taking courses, we've also got various programs for on-the-job trade training, such as collision repair and refinishing, automotive services, aviation maintenance, carpentry, mechanics, electrical, HVAC, and welding. So there are all kinds of job opportunities in this Oklahoma City area that students can jump into if they're interested. And in a minute, we'll talk about assessments to see how do you even know which direction to go? What gifts might you have? And there are ways that we can help you figure that out.
Right. And like Heather said, like we're in two different areas in the United States. So some community resources that are available in Los Angeles, California, because that's where I reside. One of them is the Los Angeles County America's Job Centers of California. And a lot of their services include career counseling, job placement, resume building, interview coaching, and vocational training. And then their youth-focused programs, they offer a lot of paid work experience, pre-apprenticeships, and career pathways especially for 14 to 24-year-olds. So again, it is something that is out there for high school students to access. And then even after, like I said, if you're taking a break or you just don't know what direction you want to go to, this is a good resource for you to look into. As well as the Los Angeles Youth Build that offers services for GED preparation. In a lot of the articles that I was reading, a lot of the youth don't even want to finish high school because they don't see a pathway, a clear pathway of what they could do after. So having some GED preparation is really important. Vocational training, they have it, especially in construction and leadership development. And again, their target age group is from 16 to 24-year-olds who are not in school or working.
Mm. It's encouraging to see how many resources there are. Honestly, now that we live in the information age of the internet, it makes it easier for students to do some of that research at home on their own. So a couple of web-based resources we wanted to highlight is the careeronestop.org. It allows the client to search for jobs in their area by listing their specific skills, education levels, etc. Another really helpful web-based resource is Indeed.com, and it allows clients to personalize their search again with their interest, their experience, and their education level.
Right. And
And
then if you're looking specifically into, sorry, Heather, if you're looking
you're good.
specifically into California resources, we can see the OK Career Guide or the edd.ca gov resources, as well as the LinkedIn, which is accessible everywhere, not just specifically for California.
Yes, and then of course there's also ZipRecruiter. So I know many have already heard of these, but I find that sometimes students don't think of themselves as ready to search on any of these. But like we said, there are things listed for all education levels, so students can find jobs that are right out of high school on these web-based resources. And then, like I mentioned a minute ago, sometimes the most overwhelming step is that first step of what do I even want to do? What am I even good at or interested in? And so, this is where assessments can come in really handy. One to possibly begin with is the Keirsey Temperament Assessment. And this one basically will help the student or the client discover what type of personality temperament they have. And as they talk with their career guidance counselor, they can look at different jobs that might really benefit that career or that personality or temperament type. Now, with a multicultural consideration here, the counselor wants to be aware of their own cultural values and biases, and you want to seek to understand your client's worldview and consider how culture influences the counseling relationship, and then integrate this understanding with those assessment results. So there might be phrases or words that your client doesn't understand, or they don't make sense in their cultural template. And so not just assuming that our clients know exactly what this assessment means, but making sure, and whether no matter who our client is, just making sure that they understand this assessment that they're filling out. The second resource that is used a lot in career assessments is the ONET Career Exploration Tool. And this one will give a range of jobs, and then it'll also give examples and the education level and the skills needed for these jobs. And so this is like a huge website with a ton of information that will pull up. And this could be helpful to go through with a client so that it's not so overwhelming, possibly if they're doing it by themselves, but possibly helping our clients to pick out those ones that really stick out to them that they might be interested in, and just create kind of a list for them to start to go off of. Now, a multicultural consideration here is that studies have shown potential sampling and response biases from the ONET specifically, and an underrepresentation of certain populations. So we definitely want to be sure that we're prepared to offset this with pertinent information concerning our non-white clients, and make sure that that we allow them to educate us on their culture and on their understanding when they're going through this assessment. We want to explain cultural references when necessary, and just be sure that we are approaching our clients, obviously, with cultural humility as we would with anyone else. The third is the Career Explorer, and this one again, just like it sounds, it's an online assessment. You can take that, and it will give results as far as careers that you might be well suited for. And then lastly is the Holland Code Career Quiz. And this one, if you've heard of the RIASIC, but it breaks personalities into 6 different types. And then based on the code that you get a 3-letter code. And based on that code, it's going to recommend certain jobs and fields and career paths. And then again, a client can take all of this information with their career counselor and go over all of it. Again, on the Holland Code, we want to consider the multicultural aspect of this as well. Consider the client's individual values, their culture, and their experiences. Asking questions of the client in order to gain more helpful information instead of just handing them the assessment and not asking any questions to make sure that everything is understood and that they have um, a positive experience doing this and that they feel understood. We also want to assess their reading level. These all are different. They come in at different reading levels, and so we just want to make sure that the questions are well read, understood, and comprehended. So we're kind of going through the steps. So hopefully, as you're listening to this, you're beginning to think about what this might look like if you choose to seek out a career counselor. And so once the client has decided they're really ready to take that next step and gain some insight onto what their potential career or their job might look like, the first steps would be to interview with a career counselor. Complete those assessments, like some of the ones we just mentioned. You're going to process the results. After those assessments, the results come up instantly. So with the career counselor, you're going to look through those results, process them, and then follow up with any questions that you might have based on those assessments, and then together form some goals. Once you have goals together, you're going to work with the career counselor to create your resume. And that can take a little bit of time. And then after you're happy with the resume, practice some interviewing, just back and forth interviewing to gain confidence and to gain skills.
Right. And then for like the third step, you would want to research areas of interest. So in this case, you would interview others in that work environment. So let's just say you find a place that you're interested in, but you still kind of want to know what it's about. That's a really good step to take. Again, interviewing them, reading materials, and watching documentaries, which Heather actually mentioned earlier about the Road Trip Nation that shows um, a lot of different options for you in the work environment. You can also shadow someone in that field or intern to gain hands-on experience. And then next, after that, you can do either further training, certifications if you find that that's what's needed. Prepare for enrollment, contact enrollment offices and gather the necessary information. And a lot of this is going to take a lot of proactivity. So yes,
Mhm.
you're going to be doing a lot of this on your own, but with a career counselor, like these are steps that we're hoping to be able to give to high school students in order to have these tools available to them so they can take those courses to build and develop the skills that are needed if they decide not to go on to higher education.
And these action steps that we just went over really pertain to a student who is going directly into a certain type of job, but there are other options to consider. And maybe that's not the frame of mind that you're in or the track that you're not wanting to go down right now. And so some other action steps that you could complete right now that many students are doing. There's volunteer opportunities just to get experience in different places of work. There's mission work that many do through churches or through nonprofit organizations, mission trips. There's a gap year that many students take where it's just gaining information, maybe working at the job you've had in high school just to continue researching and trying to figure out what it is that you even like. Some enlist in the military. Some begin to work in a family business and stay at home and help their family. And so we hope that you are understanding today that there are many paths that you can take as a non-college bound high school student.
So accessibility and ability considerations. So many face economic barriers. like we said, the inability to afford training or transportation to job sites or apprenticeships. So again, as a career counselor, this is some of the resources that we want to be able to give our high school students, and also take into consideration that again, it could be a monetary issue or just a simple aspect of not having that transportation. There are also linguistic or cultural obstacles. So especially students from immigrant backgrounds or households where English is not a primary language, like again, we have to be culturally competent in order to be able to help everyone. And then there's also like limited access to career counseling, mentorship, and hands-on learning experience. So with a lot of the investigation that we did notice that not all the schools have access to career counseling, or at least not anyone that are competent in those areas, or have enough information for the students to make those necessary choices. And
Mhm.
then finally, students with disabilities, they face a lot of added challenges, not just like general students, but those with disabilities, and such as like the lack of accommodations in the career and technical education programs or apprenticeships.
Yes, and speaking of students with disabilities, I wanted to point out, especially in Oklahoma, a couple of services that we offer to help students with disabilities have accessibility to higher education or continued education services. And so the Career and Technical Education, the CTE, provides services for students, all students, no matter who they are. And that's through the Oklahoma Education website. And then Oklahoma offers many resources as far as for literacy is concerned. If textbooks or research books are not affordable, they've got book shares. We've also got a relationship with the Oklahoma Library for the Blind to provide accessible materials. There's tutoring services, and so we also want to partner with students in the literacy area. And then lastly, the Oklahoma Department of Rehabilitation Services, they offer job related services to eligible students with disabilities. And so we help prepare those students for the workforce. We work with counselors to assist students and teachers and parents in developing the appropriate plan and then accommodating those career goals and assisting those students with whatever additional resources they might need, like technical services, again, tutoring or accessibility in other ways.
Okay, so in conclusion, just to address the non-college bound high school graduates needs, that's the point of our presentation. We want to be able to address those needs. Um, support system that must be culture responsive. Like we need to consider that we're not all from the same backgrounds. We don't all have financial accessibility, and just also think about the inclusiveness of the diverse learning styles and abilities of our high school students. So programs must go beyond the traditional college prep model, and this college prep model is designed rigorously to prepare students for success in higher education. But we want to ensure that all students have equitable access to meaningful employment and pathways.
Thank you for joining us today, and we hope that we've encouraged you to seek out further information and talk with a career counselor to develop your unique next steps.